Hello, my name is Joshua, and I'm here today because I chose my number 2 paper topic to speak about, and that is the history of the fire service, a little in depth into the tradition, and what it's going to look like in the near coming future. To start this out, I wanted to talk a little bit about just a little bit about that history. For over 400 years, the fire service has been an in-depth part of all cultures around the world, including mainly starting out in Europe in small villages with something called a bucket brigade. And this usually began where you have a bell that was centrally located inside the small village or city that whenever there was an emergency or a fire, someone would go out and ring the bell, and everybody would go outside with a bucket that they usually carried inside their house and set it aside or go use it and go to the well, fill it up, run to wherever the fire was and put it out. And from that starting out, that kind of shows a little bit of the tradition into it. And with more in depth into that is a big background kind of with the fire service started with actually the military. The instant command system that the fire service runs on nowadays was implemented and started by the military. You have in the modern day fire service a fire chief going down through the battalion chiefs or the assistant chiefs all the way down to the captains or lieutenants, and then the normal firefighters. A 4-man engine crew today consists of a lieutenant who's in charge of the fire truck, a driver who is the person that gets everybody to the scene safely, and then you usually have 2 firefighters that sit in the back seat. With that also, you have our gear that we wear. We have a normal bunker gear and helmets. The helmet is actually something that is pretty interesting. You have a traditional fire helmet that can be made out of leather. Back in the day, that's what they used. Nowadays, you actually still can buy leather fire helmets. It's something that is kind of steeped in tradition and firefighters take pride in having. So it's, even though it may be bulky and heavy and not as nice as the modern ones, it still is up to today's codes and standards. So you'll see it a lot, that a lot of the firefighters around still do have the leather helmets. Another thing that is kind of in the history of it is the animals in the fire service. Back in the day, in the 1800s, you would see horse-drawn fire engines, steam engines. And the animals has always been a big thing. You also notice the dogs in the fire service with the Dalmatians and everything else. Those actually were used to guard hydrants. Earlier on in the U.S. history, you would have different fire departments that would try to get to a scene first, because whoever arrived there first could actually charge that person's house that was on fire. They could charge them for the bill of putting it out. So you would have rival fire departments going against each other to try and be the first ones there. So they would use the dogs to protect the hydrants, so stop the other fire service from coming in and actually using that water. So they would use dogs to protect it. So that's a little bit of the history into that. I'd like to take you now into our normal day-to-day operations. We have volunteers and paid fire departments all around New York at this time. Paid fire department usually runs 24 on, 24 off with an average day. They do details in the morning, checking out the vehicles. They'll usually go do a lunch together as a shift or a crew. They'll find any training that they have to do, any cleaning of the station, going out, flame permits, inspections of any buildings or that kind of stuff. And just a normal day. Now, throughout this whole day, you also got to remember that if any time an emergency comes, they will drop the hat or drop what they're doing, get on the trucks and go do the emergency. They'll finish that, come back, and do the normal stuff. So that's just a little bit into the detail of the day-to-day operations. Now, the future of the fire service. This is something that's kind of interesting. You have things like, they were recently invented FLIR, which is forward-looking infrared. It's something that's used on police helicopters, and we use it on our helmets, and we hold thermal imagers to be able to see heat and find victims and patients, and that's something that's definitely going to be in the near future. They're trying to figure out how to put it so we can actually see it on our heads-up displays as well. With that, I kind of hope that this shows you an in-depth kind of look into how the fire service was back then and it is now. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please comment below on the news thread. Thank you very much for watching.